This podcast is brought to you by Flipper, the number one marketplace to buy and sell online businesses and startups. So if you own or run your own online business, have you considered selling your site, your store, your tech, or your app? Well, with world-class combined matching technology, dedicated brokers, and end-to-end services, all at the most efficient price, Flipper makes selling your online business simple. So to get a free valuation, simply visit flipper.com/techtalks. Each month, thousands of online business owners exit with Flipper. Again, to learn more, visit flipper.com/techtalks. Welcome back to the Tech Talks Daily podcast. Now today, I want to explore the world of solar power and the technology that makes it all possible. And also learn more about why energy independence is not as simple as you might think. So I've invited Andreas, the founder and CEO of a company called Otovo, onto the podcast today, which I think was founded back in 2016 and has become Europe's leading online residential solar marketplace and has assessed over 4 million homes across Europe. And they're looking at serving 90% of Europe's population and launching into dozens of more countries over next year. But I want to learn more about their proprietary technology that connects customers to local vetted installers and how their technology is making the process of adopting solar at home as smooth and as seamless as possible. And just to give you an indication of how powerful this technology is, their online marketplace takes a customer address and is able to automatically calculate the size and shape and specification of suitable rooftop solar products. But then, using satellites, they're then able to calculate exactly how much sun is likely to be shining on a roof and how much energy they can expect to be generated from it. And then automatically, a real-time auction between local installers finds the cheapest price for the work required. It's an incredibly exciting approach for me, and I'm interested in learning more about this. And I invite you to join me too. And today, I'm going to say buckle up and hold on tight, because no matter where you're listening in the world, I'm going to beam your ears to Oslo, Norway, to speak to Andreas about all this and much more. So a massive warm welcome to the show. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
Yes, sure. I'm Andreas Thorsheim. I'm founder and CEO of Otovo. Otovo is a solar energy and battery marketplace that started in Oslo back in 2016, and now 7 years later is present in 13 European countries. We sell solar panels online using techniques common from e-commerce to convince consumers to get solar panels on their roof and batteries in their shed. And on the back end of that system, we have about 700 installer companies that interact with us in order to get projects and work for themselves. So that's the platform, and we've been doing this for 7 years, as I said.
Love that. And obviously you're talking to me today in Oslo, Norway, absolutely stunning part of the world. I'd love to take you back in time for a moment, because obviously a lot of people listening will think about Norway and the beautiful, great outdoors, etc. But can you remember where your passion for technology came from, or just a moment that would put you on the path that you're on today?
Yeah, sure. I'm trained as an economist, and I was planning to go into central banking and set the interest rate and fight unemployment and inflation, all this stuff. I think that was where I had my head when I was back at uni. And then while I was reading and preparing to get a job, I thought I might do some interview training in order to be well prepared for a job in public service. And I thought, okay, I need to get into a couple of hard interviews just to know what this interview thing is about. And I stumbled across this company called Schibsted, which is a traditional media company that comes out of Oslo, but evolved into a juggernaut in online marketplaces and ended up acquiring eBay Classifieds. It's I don't know, I guess it's sort of a Time Warner type of company coming out of the Nordics or something like that. And I just fell in love with that company, and I've just thought, okay, let's forget about what I was studying. I want to go into this media and tech world and figure out what that's about. And I ended up staying there 11 years. I later went on to work for Opera Software that makes browsers and security apps and other things that make it safe and quick and cheap for people to browse the internet. So I just got, I fell in love and blown away. And I was thinking I was going to stay in that world for my entire career until I once again got derailed and started off in the energy world where I'm now.
Love that. What a great story. And of course, it would be that path that would lead you becoming the founder and CEO of Otovo. I think it was back in 2016. And since then, Otovo has gone to become Europe's leading online residential solar marketplace and has assessed over 3 million homes across Europe alone. So can you tell me more about the story behind the company? And also, how did you conceive the idea for it and the problems you set out to solve from the very beginning?
Yeah, so as I said, I wasn't planning to go into energy. I had my hands full being an exec in a tech company, and then I came across this new technology of solar and batteries as I was on a corporate trip, and as part of the journey, we visited the Tesla factory in California, and there was a Swede who was running the supply chain business over there at Tesla. His name was Peter Carlson. He later went on to found Northvolt, the biggest battery startup in Europe. But back then he was handling supply chain for Elon Musk, and we visited him and he showed us around the Tesla plant, and I just got blown away by these amazing cars that they were making. And this was back in, I guess, 2014 or 2015 back then. And I thought I need to read about this technology because it's really fascinating. These guys are going to kick everyone's butt. And so I started reading about batteries, and one thing led to the other, and I started reading about solar energy. And at one point I was looking at this cost curve of solar panels that had been getting cheaper by about 10% every year. And I thought, okay, what is this going to lead to? And then I realized, well, first of all, solar energy is going to win against all other types of energy just in terms of price within a decade. And second of all, the hardware price that's everyone's focusing now on in 2014, 2015 will matter less and less as we go into the 2020s because, well, it will just have depreciated so much that there's not a lot of cost left in the hardware. The remaining costs will be in the last mile delivery and the marketing, the human cost of putting the panel where it's supposed to be. And I recognize that as an opportunity for an online marketplace where we could solve the remaining problems in solar, because the technology component already solved, the price problem pretty much already solved. So now it was just about getting the panels to where they're supposed to be on people's homes. And I thought, okay, we can build a platform to do that. So that's what we set out to do back in 2016. I quit my job, sold my car, sold my cabin, and got some co-founders to join the team. And we thought, okay, let's start selling solar panels online and teach a computer software to do what a person does when he's on a roof, measuring the roof, figuring out how much solar energy can be generated from that particular angle at that particular geometrical shape on the earth, and see how much that will cost if we have a couple of guys to install this at this particular house. So it's a bit of a gamble back then, but over time, as you said, we've now assessed. It's actually more than 4 million homes that have been assessed so far, and tens of thousands of people have decided to buy a solar system through Otovo. So I guess it turned out that this way of doing it actually worked. But we had a lot of doubts along the way, I can tell you that.
I love it. And as a tech podcaster, I was fascinated by how this online marketplace ultimately takes a customer's address and automatically calculates the size, shape, and specification of suitable rooftop solar products. And using satellites as well, which also makes it incredibly cool, Otovo then calculates exactly how much sun is going to be shining on the roof and how much energy can be produced from it, and then runs this automated real-time auction between local solar installers to find the cheapest price for the work required. It's a fantastic vision here of how it all converges together and the role of technology. Fascinating stuff. And Can you tell me more about the tech that makes all this possible, though, and how it all works together? Because it's incredibly cool, isn't it?
It is, right? And it's really, it's not as smart as it sounds, to be honest, right? Why is that? Because it's really, and I think you find this in quite a lot of the best tech companies, maybe not always that advanced, right? But it's just a good combination of existing technologies. And so I think between Pythagoras and Copernicus, a lot of the math required was figured out a long time ago, and so that's not particularly advanced. What is the hypothesis here, though, is that the size of the panel is known by training a software to recognize shapes and aerial photography and satellite imagery. By combining that with whatever government data are available about your building, we're able to give a very accurate assessment of the geometrical shape that the building has. And once you know that and the size of panels, there's not a lot of unknowns left, because then you know how many panels you can fit on the roof. You know the location of the building, so then you can figure out how many hours per day and how many days per year the sun will shine on that particular location, and you can just do the calculus of how much energy these panels will produce if you fill the entire roof or less than the entire roof, etc. So you can do all the things that a person does when they're doing a home visit, and hence you can avoid doing the home visit and save everyone a lot of time, both the homeowner who doesn't need to set time aside to have a person visit them and drink coffee with them and get a ladder out and take the risk of having a person up on the roof. It also saves the installer a lot of time, because, to be honest, they don't close the sale every time they're at the home visit. So that saves a lot of driving, it saves a lot of time, and that's great. The big unknown, of course, is whether the installer is going to have capacity available, if he has people and equipment ready, and at what cost he'll be willing to install at your house in York or in Lyon or in Madrid or wherever in Europe you might be located. Now, so in order to be able to know the cost, you need to have X-ray vision into small and medium-sized electricians and solar installers cost base, right? And that's the difficult part. So we've been out over several years now recruiting installer companies that want to work with us, who want to fill up their pipeline of projects, who want to do some backfill when they're not sold out, a bit like hotels do when they're on hotels.com or booking.com, in order to sell some extra hotel rooms. Well, the installers, they interact with us in the same way. So we've been out recruiting these guys, getting them to tell us how much an hour of electrician work cost, how much driving a kilometer cost, how much they want to get paid for putting a panel up on the roof, and lots of details about their cost. And then the software combines those to the exact specifications of the home that you have while you're on the site. So within a second, we'll have these installers compete for the job, and in any given city in Europe, we'll typically have somewhere between half a dozen and a couple of dozen installer companies that will be competing for the work at that particular location, and that allows us to have pretty aggressive prices for the consumer. That's great for them, and to fill the installers' workbooks, and that's great for them. So it's just a good combination of lots of numbers that actually are out there. You just need to collect them and combine them in one place.
And can you also tell me a bit more about how this virtual power plants are using consumer solar? Because this is a story we don't get to hear too much about, is it?
No, and now you're kind of touching upon the next frontier of solar. So, So far, getting a solar panel up on a roof really is a way for you to save money on your energy bill, and that's surely relevant for both your purchasing power and your and the sustainability of the planet, to be honest, right? But so far, getting a panel up saves you the need to buy solar off the traditional grid, and that's been a good enough proposition for consumers and for governments to be very supportive of solar panels for the last a decade or a couple of decades. Now, increasingly, these solar panels now get sold with batteries. a technology that's really been emerging over the last few years as something that's economically sustainable for the homeowner, makes it interesting to keep some of the energy you make in the daytime into the evening and night hours, so you can charge your car with homemade solar energy in the evening, or avoid steeper grid charges in some countries in the evening hours. That type of thing, the battery can help you with. Now, what's happening increasingly is that when a neighborhood gets first tens of batteries and later hundreds of batteries on the same few streets, that's in essence an enormous resource that can be coordinated, so that if there's a risk of a blackout because these homes are consuming too much energy at the same time or too little, so there's an imbalance in the grid, the batteries can at the same time all charge or discharge their energy. And this is super valuable for grid operators who will be willing to pay consumers to help them in this way. And this is increasingly in technology that's available and that companies like ours are monetizing. So in vulnerable grids like in Puerto Rico, solar energy companies like Sonova have thousands of batteries in people's homes that do this type of service and help stabilize the grid. And even in more advanced grids, this is increasingly common. And in both the British and the German market, groups of consumers get to be part of this stabilizing role and get paid for it. So it's super exciting, and it's showing that these distributed small resources, when combined, can do a better job than the centralized old power plant of the past.
And if we were to look towards the future and everything that you're working towards here, do you think we will see an energy independence in a true form? Do you think that's where we're heading to, and what this could look like?
There's a saying that no man is an island, and I think no consumer should be completely energy independent either. Yeah. Because the at the end there, the last few percentages of independence cost you a lot, right? Yeah. So I'd say increasing energy independence, definitely. There's estimates that about a third of the energy we consume will be produced at our homes. That makes a lot of sense to me. There's no reason why we wouldn't make 5 or 10,000 kilowatt hours per year in every single home, and hundreds of thousands of kilowatt hours in every single office building and parking lot. And that makes a lot of sense to me. That avoids the grid, or that eliminates the grid's needs to transport lots of energy across long distances. We can keep that for the more exceptional days when the sun isn't shining or the wind isn't blowing. So definitely more energy independence. People can have batteries in their homes and in their garages on 4 wheels that can help them keep electricity even if there's a blackout for several days. That makes a lot of sense to me, but I'm not sure that will be completely decoupled from the grid. That comes at a high cost and is probably not the best way of organizing society. I think the best way of organizing society is that you'll leave a lot of the work to solar panels, batteries, and windmills in the future, but you'd want you want some base load, maybe from nuclear or from new technologies that we haven't seen yet, to provide the remainder, the centralized battery backups, etc. And that we can solve energy problems as teamwork, where there's these new players in the shape of solar and wind taking a much bigger role than they have in the past.
Yeah, so many great points there. So I'm curious, though, what would you say your biggest challenges are right now in everything you're trying to achieve, and especially as we're hitting a new year in 2023? Is there anything that particularly stands out as your big challenges right now?
Yeah, it's scaling. The tech word is scaling. The energy word is deployment. It's really about getting enough of this stuff out fast enough. And 2022 has been an exceptional year. Solar alone will have added as much new capacity as the estimates at the beginning of the year were for solar energy, wind energy, and hydro energy combined. And the International Energy Agency has revised its projections for 2023 up by 20% since the beginning of the year. So it's just been an exceptional year for solar energy, and even at growing at that pace, it's probably not enough to avoid the worst of climate change. It's probably not enough to fill the gap from Russian gas imports that now are not going to be available to Europe. So we need to go very, very fast, both with batteries and with solar. And in order to do so, manufacturing capacity needs to grow, also in Europe and the US. Our paperwork and permitting processes need to go a lot faster. And companies like my own, Otovo, we need to get our act together and convince consumers every minute of every hour of every day to decide to do this now. Because I honestly think that a couple of decades from now, every single home will have solar panels on them and batteries in their sheds. So it's really about having that queue move as fast as possible. So the big problem is deployment, scaling.
And something else that everyone's looking towards at the moment is what tech trends are going to be dominating this year. So are there any particular tech trends that excite you or that you're monitoring closely?
Yes, batteries have just blown me away. And it's one of these things where it's like, everyone's been talking about it for a while. But I think if you see what's happened in batteries over the last year, they've been coming down in price, even as every single other commodity and item and device has been increasing due to increasing inflation, right? So batteries have been super strong. That means that there's more applications where they'll be economically competitive in 2023 than ever before. They are coming with more powerful, smarter software that allows us to charge them and discharge and keep energy in smarter ways. And it's really it's a smart and flexible midfield player on the renewables team that we've been waiting for. So batteries really excite me a lot. And I think it's been, even with all the faith that has been put in batteries for the future, I think we can expect batteries to carry a lot of the difficult burdens for the electrification of society going forward. So batteries excite me a lot, and for 2023, I think we're also going to see a lot of progress on the management layer, the software layer that sits on top of these batteries to make them more useful. I'd say my number one pick for 2023 is batteries in all forms.
Brilliant. I love that. And as we look back on your career, because we started the podcast at the very beginning of your origin story, how you almost stumbled on the world of tech and a tech career. If you look back as we come full circle now, what would you say are the biggest lessons that you've learned throughout your tech career?
It's that the people matter more than the tech. It's maybe a bit of a cliche, but Otovo has about 400 employees. We've added about 200 of them the last year. So obviously I've been spending a lot of time in interviews and recruiting, and we've just had a lot of great people join this mission. They're attracted to this idea of helping changing the energy landscape of Europe, of making the world slightly better every day a panel goes up. And this is something that clearly motivates people, and we're lucky to have this wonderful backdrop when we're recruiting. And the result of doing good recruiting work is that you get fun colleagues, you get a good work environment, and it's also putting smart people together in the same room. That's what makes technology progress. That's what makes technology scale, and that's what makes technology known to other people. And all that is, of course, super essential to make technology work. So I think this was something I didn't appreciate fully, 5 years ago, and even less 10 years ago. And as time goes by, I'm increasingly agreeing with all my older colleagues who say it's all about people, and I see they've been right all along.
Yeah, such a powerful line. And before I let you go, we do have a bit of a tradition on this podcast, and that's to ask the guests to leave everyone listening with a personal note of inspiration. So if I was to ask you to leave either a song for our Spotify playlist or a book for our Amazon wish list, what would you leave everyone listening with and why?
Well, if it's a song, I'd recommend everyone listen to Lord's Solar Power. We're recording this on pretty much the darkest day of the year, so get some solar power in your life. It's about when the sun returns and the summer comes back. That should put some motivation in all of you. So it's a nice summerly song to put on at the darkest hour of the year. If there's a book I'd recommend, it's 4321 by Paul Auster. It's a wonderful book that's written it's a book about growing up, but it's written in 4 different versions over the same life, and it makes you reflect over the slight changes in circumstances and chance that can produce really different outcomes in people's lives, and it puts some humility into you, as if you think you're too excellent, or if you think you've had a bad draw several times. Well, that'll allow you to see that it's just maybe slight variations that determine whether you're one of the lucky ones or not. So it's a great book, 4321 by Paul Auster. I'd recommend it to everyone.
Fantastic. I'll get the song added to our Spotify playlist and the book added to our Amazon wishlist so people can check that out. And before I let you go, for anyone listening, just wanting to find out more information about Otovo, all the topics we explored today, or even contact your team, what's the best starting point for everything?
Well, Otovo is present in 13 European countries, from northern Norway to the south of Spain. So check out your otovo.local domain. If that's not available to you, otovo.com, that's where you find both investor information and career information. So otovo.com or Otovo at your national domain. That's where you can learn more about Otovo and the products we have.
Well, there's so much cool things that I love about Otovo and what you're trying to achieve here. And I love the technology and how you're using satellites to calculate exactly how much sun is shining on a roof and how much energy can be produced from it. And then running the automated real-time auction between local solar installers, find out the cheapest prices and the work it required. But take all that technology away. And I love that line you used a few moments ago. The biggest thing you've learned in your career is people matter more than tech. And I love how all that fuses together. So thank you so much for taking the time to sit down and share your story today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
And something we didn't get to talk about in the podcast there is Otovo is, yes, a market leader in their native Norway. And over there, they've managed to cut the price of solar in half over the last 5 years alone. And I've helped thousands of households now across Europe transition to domestic solar power already. And this is becoming an increasingly hot topic. And I think anyone that wanted to go down this route in previous years has found the whole marketplace incredibly daunting and overwhelming. And having a system like this that will immediately tell you this is the size of the solar panels that you will need for your property, and using satellites determining exactly how much power you are likely to generate, I think that immediately gives you an indication of, is this going to work for me? Or how will it work for me? Before then making a decision and choosing a provider, rather than just ringing those providers and asking for their help. But I'm curious, what were your thoughts on anything we discussed today? Please email me, techblogwriter@outlook.com, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram @NeilCHughes. Keep those messages coming in. I'd love to learn more about it. Love to learn more from your insights. And other than that, if you're game, we'll tackle a completely different topic tomorrow. How does that sound? Whew, glad you said that. Okay, so thank you for listening as always. And until next time, don't be a stranger.